its regular meeting of the Scottsville Unified Number 48 Governing Board at 6:41 p.m. The board will now move to public comments, agenda item 6. As a reminder, each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. The timer will be on the board for you to watch and on the computer monitor. Our next speaker is Amanda Ray, followed by Rose Smith.
Good evening. Please forgive me as I speed read this to beat the buzzer. I'm going to read an excerpt from the Arizona Department of Education Parental Rights Handbook. All parental rights are reserved to a parent of a minor child without obstruction or interference from the state, any political subdivision of the state, any other governmental entity, or any other institution, including the right to direct the education of the minor child and the right to direct the moral or religious training of the minor child. As it relates to parental involvement in the school, the handbook states, the governing board, in consultation with parents, teachers, and administrators, shall develop and adopt a policy to promote the involvement of parents and guardians of children enrolled in the schools within the school district, including procedures by which parents may learn about the course of study for their children and review learning materials, including the source of any supplemental educational materials. Tonight, you are scheduled to vote on curriculum that was reviewed without parental involvement and violates the Arizona Parental Rights Handbook. What is the process for which parents are supposed to be invited to these curriculum committees? My fellow parents and I have no recollection for any invitation to participate in a curriculum committee. Having 0 or only 1 parent on a committee is unacceptable. There should be a requirement to include a minimum number of parents in order to move forward with a committee. A committee should include representation of the largest stakeholder, the families and students. This is yet another example of the district assuming that they know what is best for students and making decisions in a vacuum. The links provided on the SUSD website are that of only marketing materials, and a few quick Google searches suggest that it's likely intentional. If this curriculum addition is in the best interest of our students, then why is it done covertly? My 2nd and 4th grader use Brain Pop. I was recently alerted to the existence of several Brain Pop videos that presented a very one-sided and inaccurate explanations of cultural and political events happening today that were obviously added after SUSD purchased this curriculum several years ago. The committee and board have touted these curriculum providers as ideal because they are continuously updated with current events and material. What is the process to review the additional material that is added to an online library from a curriculum provider? I'd like to remind you that the Parental Rights Handbook prohibits the school district from interfering with my right as a parent to direct the moral training of my child. And before you dismiss me for being dramatic, we have reason to be concerned in reviewing current curriculum. A Peoria parent was able to link directly to pornographic websites from an approved library of their own provided curriculum by Gale Curriculum. The vote to adopt this curriculum tonight should be tabled until the material has been made available for parent review. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Trish Olson, followed by Nick Noonan.
Hello, Dr. Menzel, President Greenberg, Vice President Sanowski, SUSD Governing Board, and Ms. Wagner. I think I got it. Okay. My name is Trish Olson. I'm the proud parent of 3 SUSD students. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. As we move forward, and hopefully away from everything centering around COVID, one of the concerns I have for our district is the declining enrollment. I'm a K through 12 alumnus of this district. My husband and I chose SUSD for our own 3 children, knowing what a special place it is. Over the last couple of years, and especially during this last school year, we've come to know more and more families that are choosing to move their children out of SUSD. There are many reasons people choose to send their children to other schools, and while there are a portion of them that were planning on leaving anyway, for their own reasons, it's the really involved, supportive families with amazing, creative, smart students that never had any intention of pulling their kids out of this district that really concern me. I've asked many of them their reasons for leaving, and while there are a variety of reasons, many of them just boil down to transparency. Parents of SUSD want transparency in all school-related topics that affect their children. I know that there were some issues at the district level a few years ago that none of you had any part in. I know that none of you could have planned for COVID and or the steps that would be needed to get the doors open in our schools. I know that you don't have a crystal ball and you can't tell us what August will look like. But even with all of that being said, the need for transparency for our parents and our caregivers has not changed. SUSD curriculum must become transparent to parents. Everyone knows that there are certain topics in relation to curriculum that are somewhat controversial. It's being discussed all over the country, on the news, on social media, on playgrounds, and on soccer fields. When I do the research for myself, I have a really hard time drilling down on the SUSD website to find out exactly what's being taught in my children's classrooms. The lack of resources available to parents creates a lot of misinformation and speculation. If parents have easy access to this information or could be more involved in the process of selecting new curriculum, I believe a lot of this misinformation and speculation could be avoided and we could all get back to focusing on the number one priority here, students. Conversations about controversial topics should not be swept under the rug. If those conversations need to be had, let's have them. But it's important that parents have a clear and concise understanding of how these subjects will be taught and presented to our children. I also fear the impact of a mask mandate on the enrollment numbers for SUSD, but Dr. Menzel covered that, so I'm going to skip that part. Please keep the lines of communication open with parents. There are families that would be making very important decisions about where their children will be going next school year, and I hope that they can all choose SUSD because they know exactly what to expect when their kids walk through those doors next year. Thank you.
Agenda item 9, public comments. Are there any further public comment cards? The board will now move to agenda item 10A, action item, implementation for the 2021-2022 school year in the following areas: 6-8 English Language Arts, 9-12 English Language Arts, AP Literature, AP Language, and AP Psychology. Dr. Menzel.
Thank you, President Greenberg, Vice President Sanowski, and members of the governing board. I'm going to ask Dr. Guerin to come to the podium, and while she does, I want to make a few introductory comments. I know that members of the governing board have received quite a few emails and heard comments tonight at the podium with respect to our process, and Dr. Guerin and her team will be able to answer some of those specific questions. There are a couple of other things that I think are worth pointing out tonight in terms of information that's been circulating, and I think it's important to talk about because we as a district are committed to transparency, and we are committed to an inclusive process with our community as it relates to our curriculum. But we're also committed to being able to share information openly. So there have been some pieces of information that have circulated that are not quite accurate with respect to this curriculum adoption this evening. And one of those things relates to an assertion that this curriculum adoption is adopting critical race theory. And when you look at SUSD and the curriculum that's being proposed, there's no critical race theory component in the ELA curriculum. There is on SUSD's website information about having culturally responsive pedagogy and culturally responsive practices. One of the things that when we discuss difficult topics, and that's one of the things that was mentioned earlier this evening, defining our terms is really important. As a diverse district with students from all different types of race, ethnic, and socioeconomic backgrounds, we strive to be culturally responsive to our student body and in our curriculum. That's different than critical race theory. And I think it's really important as we entertain these conversations to be clear about the terms that we're discussing and also to be transparent. So the question about parental involvement, Dr. Guerin can talk about the process that we've utilized, but I'll say that on a go-forward basis, we'll do more. We have opportunities to make sure that all of our families receive communication about opportunities to participate on committees, and we'll have a process where we can both notify them of the opportunities and invite participation from a broad cross-sector across Scottsdale. So that's one of our commitments for process improvement. The other thing that surfaced that I think is important just to highlight, it was mentioned by one of the parents related to Brain Pop, which is a supplemental support for our curriculum. It's not the curriculum itself. And there were changes made on the digital platform. When the concerns were brought to our attention, we investigated with our teaching and learning team, moved very quickly because there were some things that we saw that were disconcerting, particularly without the guidance and support of adult teachers and mentors in the classroom. That was new learning for us in terms of what was there and raised an important point, and that is we need to have a process as a district for monitoring online digital resources and supports that can change over time and be different than what's brought forward to the governing board for consideration. So I look at all of these things as opportunities to improve our practices in service of our students, to ensure that we're providing the highest quality teaching and learning opportunities and that our students are able to succeed. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Guerin to provide some additional context on process and then answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel, President Greenberg, Vice President Sanowski, board members, Gladys, and guests. So I just wanted to provide a couple clarifying comments about some of the concerns we've received, and then of course my team is here. We'd be happy to answer any questions. So there has been, as you can imagine, there are so many committee opportunities on educational services, and some committees are more popular than others. We had no problem at all recruiting parents for our Return to Learn groups in the middle of the pandemic. There was so much interest in how to keep kids safe and how to provide different learning models. Calendar committee, on the other hand, was not one of our most popular committees. So we work hand in hand with Scottsdale Parent Council, and the president and her leadership team are so responsive and spend a lot of time helping us recruit. As Dr. Menzel said, this is a moment where we can reflect on how can we get the word out, how can we expand, how can we improve. So knowing that not everyone is involved with all the associations, particularly parents, we can use our website. Their team is so talented about putting little tags and flashes that are temporary that can direct people. And I thought we could create a committee hub that anyone is interested in getting involved, not just in curriculum committees, but any committees can go and select. The other thing we've just developed in teaching and learning through looking at Dr. Menzel's strategic planning process is an interest form. So people fill out why they want to participate. And I think that really helps with the committee selection process and getting a well-rounded group and hearing voices we might not normally hear. So though this process was inclusive because we sought parent help, we didn't have as much parent interest as in other committees, but we also can reflect on how to improve it. We are required by statute to provide textbook access when we're doing an adoption. And typically, we line up textbooks in various places and invite people to come in and look through the textbooks. And we don't get a great turnout on that. Because of COVID, and in the early days when we were so concerned about surface contact, we were not able to do that. We considered holding this adoption, but we heard from our secondary teachers that the materials were outdated. We did not want to wait another year, and they were willing to work through the pandemic, and they found a way to do it. We worked with our vendors to ask them to put their curriculum on the website. This is something that they haven't done before. These are copyrighted, protected materials that they spend millions of dollars developing. So it's not something that you can just put on the website, but they understood our desire to move forward. And so that's why you use a password. So it can be a little confusing or cumbersome to some to try to look through it all. There is certainly more than just advertising or samples. You can dig deep into all the curriculum. But when you want to look at our curriculum currently K-12, you can come to district office and check out books, and we're happy to do that. We list all the vendors and all the programs, but again, because of copyright laws, we can't have everything digital. But if you're a parent, you can go under Student View and look at your child's textbook anytime. The students all have logins to those, and you're welcome to do that, and we can look at providing temporary parent access with our vendors as well. So as we learn from the pandemic, as we move into more and more a virtual world with our instructional materials, we have to use one of our new favorite words, pivot, and look at the way we did things before and understand our new challenges. Dr. Menzel brought up a challenge of ever-changing curriculum. So there's a point of pride with some of these supplemental materials that they keep improving and updating them. But when we bring an adoption or materials to you, we vet it very carefully with stakeholders, and we present it to you for your review. So it is problematic when things change. We've talked to our vendor with this textbook adoption, and the textbook will not change. The digital textbook, what could improve is some ease of access, teachers being able to share an assessment with other teachers, those kind of tools. But we're not going to see a new story or a new novel without us being notified and us vetting it. So with our formal adoptions, we feel very confident. With these supplemental material tools, such as BrainPop, we need to navigate how we can be assured that what is added, we've reviewed, we determine that it is age appropriate, aligned to the standards, and teachers can access and make decisions on having guided conversations around sensitive topics. That instructional moment, the expertise of the teacher is so important, and we need to rely on that for these areas.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Is there any questions?
Yes, Board Member Beckman.
Thank you for this. Dr. Menzel, thank you for answering quite a few of my questions. I also appreciate that we're always trying to improve on our process, and acknowledging that I think is really important. Separating the two, the committee hub, I think is a fantastic idea. We have so many committees out there right now. I would love to see some sort of resource that discusses what is existing and what we're developing, because parents don't know. And the second part of that is the accessibility. I know that you had the content to this posted on our website. It's there. But we've heard repeatedly, it's very difficult to find this type of thing. And a parent, unless they're already concerned and someone has piqued their interest, isn't just perusing our website looking through links on a daily basis. So I think we have to do a better job at communicating to our parents what we're looking at, what's out there, and the ease of use has got to be very important there. The Synergy, you mentioned something interesting on Synergy, that the parents can go on and view the digital content at any time. Can you explain that a little
Actually,
more?
through Clever, students have access to so much of our materials, right? With the single sign-on, they can access digital textbooks. And so certainly parents can look at what we currently have through that. And just one idea from there is, could we provide parents some temporary access if they want to review something digitally as well? So we can explore that.
So with this current adoption, with the supplemental material, and you said in the digital context, as they update it or change it, will a parent be able to request access and go on and look at that there?
So there will not be, this is what we're proposing for 912. There will be an actual textbook, a class set in each classroom. And then each student will have a digital textbook, which will be an exact duplicate of the hard copy, the actual textbook. So that will not change, because if they would change the digital, it wouldn't match. But what I'm saying is that a parent can look through the student single sign-on and look at any of their current textbooks, or if they'd like to pick up hard copies, we can present those as well.
Okay, it's interesting. I did not know that. I go on Synergy all the time. So thank you for pointing that out. Thank you.
Are there any other board member questions or comments? Dr. Guerin, a question for you. We are required to have the textbooks available for a 60-day period for public inspection. We did do that.
Absolutely.
And is there any difference between doing it online versus having it at the district office?
Actually, I think it presents additional access to others, but we did seek clarification to make sure that we would meet the requirements of the statute we called ADE, and you know, this is all new to have a pandemic and not really know what to do, and so we met the spirit of it, and actually, I think moving forward, we would want to do both. Because I think through the pandemic, we're going to have innovations that are going to improve our practices and processes, and not everyone can come down to a building and sit and look through a textbook. So though we have the checkout process and though we have them in certain places, why wouldn't we do both so people can also view? Moving forward, trying to simplify, and we did work with our vendor to try to provide textbook simple links because it was confusing. There's so much. So many resources that you could look through that it can be overwhelming. It's a benefit to have so many resources, but that's why it takes the committee so much time to vet everything.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that you sought clarification as to whether we properly complied there. I think that's a great idea, that moving forward, even though there won't hopefully be pandemic considerations in place and restrictions, that we provide it both in person for textbook review to comply with the law, but also online. And we do have to acknowledge that there are significant copyright issues involved when any publisher puts documents online. There is almost always somebody who will try to download it. I also think, moving forward, the committee idea is excellent, and I know board members have discussed before the importance of putting superintendent committee pages together on the website, putting governing board committee pages on the website to list membership and what is being discussed in that work. We do, I think, really need to do that, not just for this work, even though that's where the community concern is tonight, but in general. And I also think that a good process moving forward would be to email all families notice when there is curriculum available online for review that is pending approval. Again, I want to be very clear because of the types of concerns we've received. The process in the district in the past, to the best of my knowledge, has been to not do these things. The process we follow, though, is fully compliant with the law. The issue is, how can we be better and improve? Because that's what our district is all about. Focusing on our strengths, focusing on our weaknesses, and creating that path for improvement. And I think that is an excellent suggestion that you've put forward. And in general, from a philosophical point, I personally, as a board member, feel that, my view is oversight and compliance. And if you're complying with the law, if you have the processes in place, and we're looking on ways to constantly improve those processes, to adopt this curriculum, that is my role, that is my job, I personally feel. I don't think it is my job to interfere or direct what type of curriculum gets adopted. We have seen school boards in plenty of states since the 1800s get into these types of discussions as to what books should be banned, what books should be accepted, and I think the problem is that is not a smart path to go down. There are books on our supplemental reading list I personally would never read, but that doesn't mean that they don't have academic merit, and that those shouldn't be read in the proper context, age-appropriate level, with staff at that time. And many of our exams, like AP exams, require that we provide students certain supplemental reading because they will have to answer essay questions about them on their exams. So I think you've done a great job here. I think we've identified areas for improvement, and I think that can only make us better in the long run. Board Member Beckman.
One last question, because you brought this up. How do we routinely notify parents when the curriculum is available for them to take a look at?
So I don't know if Ms. Redner, if you want to add anything, but we have the website that we share, principals are aware, teachers are aware, and we share it with Scottsdale Parent Council. And so you can actually go on the website and see agendas, minutes from each meeting, and the timeline is really helpful as well. So to your point, if you don't continually check the website, you might not know that it is happening. But certainly the teachers are very involved, and we work with Scottsdale Parent Council to have parent voice in the selection process. So I think an area of improvement is communication to really get the word out there about our adoptions.
Thank you for that, because I do think that's that piece. If we would find a way to communicate to our families before and during the process that this is happening, to get, opportunity for their buy-in, to be able to look at what we're doing, I think that it only makes for a better process. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank the committee and the leadership from Dr. Fountain, Ms. Redner, Paul Becker, and all the English language arts teachers that served countless hours on this committee. Their work was truly appreciated. So, thank you.
Are there any further board member questions or comments on this action item? Do I have a motion? Oh, Dr. Menzel, do you have any further questions or comments?
I do not at this time, except for to say that it's a partnership with our parents, our teachers, and the leadership here to put this together, and we'll continue to work to improve.
Excellent. Do I have a motion to approve action item action item 10A, implementation for the 2021-2022 school year in the following areas: 6 to 8 English Language Arts, 9 to 12 English Language Arts, AP Literature, AP Language, and AP Psychology. Board Member Hartwell's moves. Do we have a second?
Second.
Vice President Sanowski seconds. It is moved and seconded that we approve agenda item 10A, action item 10A as presented. Is there any further debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0, and action item 10A is approved. The board will now move to action item 10B, approval of purchase of teacher laptops.